Hello, welcome to Sexpertise. I'm your host and favorite sexpert, the Erica Rivera, and today we are week 3 into our series, Attached, Understanding Your Style of Love. Today, our episode is on avoidant attachment. So last week we went over anxious attachment. Before that, we went through a little summary of attachment theory. Next week, we'll be going over disorganized attachment. But for tonight, we will be focused on avoidant attachment and how it affects us in dating, sex, etc. So, avoidant attachment, what is it? It's also known as dismissive avoidant. Oh, and let me put out a disclaimer. I still have allergies, just like I did during last week's episode. So, quick disclaimer, I might have the sniffles during this episode. I might be talking a little funny, a little nasally because I really can't breathe. Gotta love allergy season, but the show must go on. So, let's continue. Avoidant attachment is also known as dismissive avoidant. It's marked by a deep need for independence and a discomfort with emotional closeness. On the surface, it may look like someone who doesn't do feelings or someone who prefers casual relationships. But in reality, it's often a defense mechanism, a strategy learned in childhood to protect oneself from emotional overwhelm, neglect, or conditional love. People with this style tend to prioritize autonomy over intimacy. They may feel suffocated by emotional demands or struggle when others expect vulnerability. Their instinct is often to retreat, shut down, or intellectualize emotions rather than express them. Now, this isn't because they don't care, it's because closeness feels threatening on a nervous system level. Beneath avoidant attachment is often a core fear of being engulfed, controlled, or losing one's identity in relationships. Many avoidant types have never experienced emotional intimacy that felt safe or nourishing, so they downplay the importance of connection to stay in control. This episode is about understanding, not judging, and finding ways to bring safety back into the emotional body. Avoidant attachment usually begins in early childhood when caregivers are emotionally distant, critical, or uncomfortable with vulnerability. That child learns that expressing feelings isn't safe or worthwhile. Instead of reaching out for comfort, the child turns inward and becomes emotionally self-reliant, not by choice, but necessity. So this may happen in homes where achievement, I guess that's a good word for it, where achievement is valued over connection, or where vulnerability is seen as a weakness. Sometimes a child is shamed for crying, or told to toughen up, or expected to be independent far too early. This may sound familiar to some of you. Over time, they learn that their emotions are a problem and the safest strategy is to shut them down. As adults, these early adaptations continue to shape how they navigate love. Emotional needs may feel embarrassing, intimacy might feel like pressure, and even healthy closeness can feel invasive. Healing begins by recognizing that this detachment isn't a flaw, it's a wound, and like any wound, it deserves care. People with avoidant attachment often pride themselves on being low maintenance or not needing anyone. They may avoid labels in relationships, resist emotional conversations, and feel uneasy when someone wants to get too close. What others view as emotional intimacy they may interpret as pressure or loss of control. When conflict arises, avoidant individuals tend to withdraw or shut down. They may stop responding to texts, change the subject, or need space without explaining why. This isn't malicious, it's often their way of managing internal overwhelm and avoiding emotional vulnerability that they were never taught how to handle. Emotionally, they may suppress or minimize their own needs, convincing themselves they're fine, when deep down they feel lonely or disconnected. Recognizing these patterns is not about self criticism, it's about noticing what your nervous system has learned to avoid and why. At the root of avoidant attachment are often deep inner beliefs formed during childhood. These may sound like, I can't rely on anyone, or if I open up, I'll be hurt, or love makes you weak. These beliefs aren't random. They come from lived experiences where their emotional needs were dismissed, punished, or ignored. Many avoidant individuals learn that expressing emotions lead to rejection, shame, or loss of respect. So they internalize the idea that emotions are threats to stability. As a result, they may see emotional conversations as dramatic, avoid expressing affection, or distrust people who open up too easily. The biggest fear for someone with avoidant attachment isn't being alone, it's being emotionally trapped or losing themselves in someone else. Rewriting these beliefs starts with curiosity. What would it feel like to let someone in without losing yourself? What if connection could be chosen instead of avoided? In dating, avoidant individuals often prefer casual, low pressure relationships. They may avoid labels, keep things light, maintain emotional distance. When a relationship starts to deepen or demands vulnerability, that's when they might ghost, start arguments, or claim that they need space. Avoidantly attached people are often attracted to anxiously attached partners. We learned about anxious attachment last week. So, this is a dynamic where the anxious partner craves closeness and then the avoidant partner pulls away. While this can create intense chemistry, it often leads to emotional misalignment and pain for both sides. The key to navigating dating as an avoidant person is self awareness. Are you pulling back because something's wrong or because closeness feels unfamiliar? Can you communicate your pace and boundaries with clarity instead of distance? Dating doesn't have to be all or nothing. It could be, it can be a practice in slow, mutual vulnerability. Avoidantly attached individuals often enjoy sex, but they may disconnect emotionally during or after. Physical intimacy might feel easier than emotional intimacy, so they use sex as a way to connect temporarily without getting too close. After sex, they might pull away or act cold, not because they don't care, but because the emotional proximity feels threatening. They may also struggle with post sex vulnerability, finding it difficult to cuddle, to talk, or to connect emotionally afterward. This can confuse or hurt their partners, especially if sex was seen as a step toward deeper bonding. For the other person, though, sex may feel safer as a performance or a transaction, not as a place of emotional risk. So that's that dynamic between anxious and avoidant. Healing is going to begin with understanding your sexual patterns. Are you using sex to keep people close without being emotionally available? What would it feel like to be fully present, to let desire and emotion exist together? You deserve a sexual experience that includes your whole self, not just your body, but your heart too. Avoidant, avoidantly attached individuals often have difficulty expressing emotions or needs clearly. So you guys know I love talking about communication. And I feel like avoidant individuals may avoid difficult conversations, change the subject when feelings come up, or they minimize issues to keep things drama free. This avoidance can create distance or confusion in relationships, especially when their partner is seeking that emotional connection. They may struggle to find the words for how they feel, not because they don't have emotions, but because they were never taught how to safely express them. Emotional language may feel foreign or even threatening to them. Phrases like "I need you" or "I feel hurt" can trigger shame or fear of dependency, so they're often avoided altogether. During conflict, the avoidant person's nervous system may go into total shutdown. They may physically or emotionally withdraw, go silent, or become cold and logical. This is a survival strategy, not a punishment. Learning to stay engaged in these moments, even just by saying, "I need a moment, but I'm not leaving you," can be a game changer in relational safety. A key feature of avoidant attachment is emotional suppression. When uncomfortable feelings arise, avoidant individuals often push them down or distract themselves. They may bury themselves in work, hobbies, or intellectual analysis instead of sitting with discomfort. And over time, this leads to a disconnection from their emotional body. Rather than identifying and naming emotions, avoidant types often override feelings with logic. They may rationalize away hurt or disappointment. "It's not a big deal. I'm just overreacting." Or "I don't care anyway." You're going to hear things like that. While this creates a sense of control, it also blocks the intimacy and vulnerability that a real connection requires. Because they're so skilled at numbing out, avoidant individuals may not even realize they're stressed or emotionally flooded until they hit a breaking point. They may feel a sudden desire to escape, shut people out, or end relationships without fully understanding why. Learning to tune in earlier, to notice the small cues of discomfort, can help prevent emotional overwhelm and reactivity. Avoidant attachment people often see intimacy as a threat to their freedom. They fear being engulfed, smothered, controlled, sometimes without even realizing it. The closer someone gets, the more they may feel the need to pull away. It's not because they don't want love, but because love hasn't always felt safe. In childhood, emotional closeness may have been met with criticism, withdrawal, or even conditional acceptance. So in adulthood, vulnerability is going to feel like opening a door to pain. Even if their current partner is safe and kind, the nervous system responds based on the past, not the present. Let me say that again, and I should probably say that in every episode of this series. The nervous system responds based on the past, not the present. So love and closeness feel like a risk and not refuge. Many avoidant individuals have never experienced a model of emotional intimacy that respected their autonomy. They've only known relationships where closeness was meant to be a sacrifice or painful. Healing involves redefining intimacy, not as something that consumes you, but as something that nourishes without taking your identity. So, we also have some misconceptions about avoidance, especially if you're someone listening or watching who has perhaps dated an avoidant. One of the biggest myths about avoidantly attached individuals is that they don't care. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Avoidant people often feel deeply, they just express it differently. Because they've learned to protect themselves from vulnerability, they may love in quieter, less overt ways. Avoidance may show love through actions rather than words, by doing things for their partner, by solving problems, or by giving space when needed. These gestures often go unnoticed or misinterpreted, but they are expressions of care. The challenge is learning to balance those actions with emotional presence and verbal connection. It's also important to note that many avoidants long for connection, but only in environments where they feel emotionally safe and in control. They often fantasize about love while simultaneously avoiding it in real life. Understanding this internal conflict is the key to healing. With support, avoidance can learn to bridge that gap between desire and fear. So let's talk about healing, especially if you or someone you know is an avoidant. Healing avoidant attachment starts with awareness. Everything starts with awareness. Noticing the moments when you want to shut down or escape intimacy. From there, the work is about gently staying in connection. That might mean having a vulnerable conversation instead of avoiding it, or simply saying, I don't know how to talk about this, but I want to try. Building emotional vocabulary is a huge step. Many avoidants were never taught to name or process their feelings. So learning to say, I feel overwhelmed, or I need time to think, but I'm not leaving, can create enormous shifts. Therapy, journaling, and somatic practices can all help reconnect with your emotional world. The goal isn't to become clingy or hyper emotional. So we're not trying to go to the other side of the spectrum. It's just to feel safe in your own vulnerability. That means creating small, consistent experiences where your emotions are met with safety and not shame. Over time, your nervous system learns that intimacy doesn't have to equal danger. It can be soft, it can be mutual, it can be empowering. Being in a relationship with someone who has avoidant attachment can be very challenging, especially if you are someone that craves closeness or reassurance. It's important to remember that their distancing behaviors are not about you. Okay, they're not about you. They are about an old perspective or an old protective pattern. The more you personalize their withdrawal, the more both of you may spiral into misunderstanding. The key to connection is gentle encouragement, not pressure. Avoidant partners often retreat when they feel emotionally cornered or overwhelmed. Giving them space while remaining emotionally available yourself creates the paradoxical safety they need to come closer. It says, I'm here, you don't have to run. Building trust with an avoidant partner takes time. Rather than demanding vulnerability, celebrate the small moments when they open up. Avoid criticizing their emotional process and instead model the kind of safety and patience that you would want in return. In a secure environment, even the most avoidant person can begin to trust again. Now, avoidant attachment doesn't just show up in romantic relationships. It also affects friendships. Avoidantly attached people may have acquaintances, but very few deep emotional bonds. They might be reliable, fun, or loyal friends, but often keep emotional distance to protect their inner world. They tend to avoid sharing vulnerable feelings and may change the subject if a friend is going through something emotional. Offering or receiving support may feel awkward or overwhelming. Instead of saying, I'm struggling, they may just disappear or distract themselves to avoid that discomfort. Despite this, many avoidants deeply value connection, especially friendships that are low maintenance and pressure free. If you're an avoidant person, consider how you can deepen just one friendship by opening up a little bit more. Emotional intimacy in friendships can be a gentle, healing place to begin practicing secure connection. Avoidant attachment can become part of someone's identity, especially if they've been praised for their independence and strength. They may pride themselves on not needing help, being emotionally tough, or staying unbothered in relationships. Now, while independence is healthy, over identifying with emotional detachment can become limiting. When avoidant individuals start to heal, they may feel like they're losing part of who they are. Letting go of self reliance as a shield can be very scary. It might feel like weakness or regression. But healing doesn't mean becoming someone else. It means expanding your identity to include both strength and softness. True empowerment is having the freedom to connect when you want to, not being ruled by fear. The ability to express emotion, ask for help, or show up in love doesn't take away from your independence. It makes it deeper, richer, more resilient. All right, so some closing thoughts. Avoidant attachment is not a flaw. It's a story your nervous system wrote to keep you safe. And it worked. It got you here. But now you get to decide if it's still the story you want to live by. Protecting yourself made sense in the past, but what if connection could be just as safe? Maybe even safer than staying alone. Healing avoidant patterns isn't about suddenly becoming emotionally expressive or changing who you are. It's about making room for a fuller range of experience, to trust, to love, to be loved. That begins with honoring your past while choosing something different for your future. You are not incapable of love or intimacy. You are simply learning a new language, one that your body may not be fluent in yet, but absolutely can learn. Next week, we'll explore disorganized attachment. I feel like we don't talk about that one enough. Just in general, I think anxious attachment styles and avoidant attachment styles, we focus on that, but we don't talk a whole lot about disorganized attachment. So next week, we're going to explore that, which is the most complex and often most trauma linked style. And we're going to talk about how to move from chaos to clarity in love. Until then, stay open, stay curious. You are worthy of safe connection.